Do you know what Taliban really means? According to PBS, the word Taliban means students in Pashto, a name used because many of the original members studied in Pakistan religious schools called madrasas. In the United States, when we think of Taliban, our first reaction or thought often goes to terrorists or destruction. Yet in their Pashto language, they are just a student, similar to one of us. The Taliban destruction of cultural artifacts is just one of the many heartbreaking results of this Taliban group, but it is one of the most well-known acts of this group. In the article, Who Are the Taliban?, it describes the Taliban as a group of fundamentalist Sunni Muslim militants living today mostly near the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. From 1996 to 2001, they controlled most of Afghanistan by taking over terrorists. They use violence and destruction to gain power and carry out their goals. Also stated in the article, Who Are the Taliban?, the ideological aim of the Taliban today is to re-establish an austere and uncompromising puritanical Islamic State in Afghanistan. They are against the government and NATO forces as well as the United States. It is said that the Taliban is not a single group but a mosaic. Every province and district of Afghanistan has a Taliban group. They are essentially a localized Pashtun movement that contains three different types of groups. There is a vicious government, an ideological charged group, and a regional militia. They all serve different purposes but generally believe in the same things. In South Afghanistan, the Taliban are sub-tribes of Jaranis, and in the east, they have a heavy Zadoran component. These artifacts were considered wonders of the world. They were carved out of a cliff face over 1,400 years ago. The vast creations towered over the remote mountain valley and amazed countless visitors that observed them. Two Buddhas were built. The larger of the two reached a height of 170 feet, while the smaller Buddha stood at 115 feet. They were once the world's largest standing Buddhas until the Taliban destroyed them. At the end of 1998, jealous Taliban who had captured Bamiyan shortly beforehand blew off the head and part of the shoulders of the smaller Buddha. At around the same time, terrorists were burned on the ledge above the larger Buddha's mouth, blackening its complexion. In February 2001, the Taliban leader, Mullah Muhammad Ammar, ordered the Buddhas to be destroyed. In March of 2001, the Buddhas were destroyed. The Buddhas represented Buddhism and were non-Islamic. This is the main theory as to why they were destroyed by the Taliban. The Taliban figured that this way Islam would be the only religion to be found, and that was their goal. It took multiple attempts to destroy the Buddhas. Tanks fired upon them initially, but this turned out to be unsuccessful. Eventually, the Taliban drilled holes into the Buddhas and planted dynamite within them. A series of explosions finally brought the statues to the ground. The Taliban enforces a strict dress code for men and women, but women were held up to the higher expectations and standards. Women were required to wear headdresses called turbans and hijabs. They wore them for religious reasons, and they had to always wear them wherever they went. They were forbidden to show their body, so they had to wear long baraks, which were long overgarments. They were also not allowed to show their hair, so they were required to wear turbans and hijabs. If women didn't follow the dress code rules properly, they would receive violent punishments and harassment, including beating and verbal abuse. The Taliban destroyed museums, monuments, and cultural sites around Afghanistan. Today, we learned that they demolished several cultural locations, including the Bamiyan Valley monuments. They are ravaging through the museums and cultural sites, stealing and looting expensive antiquities. Portraits, murals, statues, paintings, and collectibles were stolen. They sell these antiquities on the black market illegally. There's a large demand for stolen artifacts, which makes this business so profitable. This is a way for them to fund their military and warfare that's being used to create terror all over the world. It helps boost their power and show the world what they are capable of. In the graphic novel Fahrenheit 451, it portrays a story of a town where book burnings are a regular occurrence. These burnings are performed by firefighters whose only job is to go around and burn books in homes of those who have these books. Throughout the novel, we follow Guy Montag, a performing firefighter through the journey of finding books and the knowledge they contain. Montag begins to question book burnings and why he does what he does as a firefighter. This story of book burnings is very similar to the destruction of Buddhas in Afghanistan. In both cases, Fahrenheit 451 and the Taliban destruction of cultural artifacts, we see a fight for power. For those in the novel, Fahrenheit 451, the book burnings are taking away knowledge, which, as said in Fahrenheit 451, knowledge is power. Whereas for those in Afghanistan, the destruction of Buddhas is an act to keep religion to only what the Taliban believe to be right. Both cases differ in what the power is, but for both, the destruction was tragic and an act of control.